Hey there, you're listening to Your Life is Awesome, featuring true life stories about sex told by audience members at SmutSlams around the world. SmutSlam is a growing network of dirty storytelling shows founded in 2011 by me, Cameryn Moore. We do our best to keep SmutSlam safe, but safe doesn't mean G-rated. Some of these stories are explicit as fuck. If you're not into that, now is a good time to get out. Otherwise, enjoy the show. Hello, freaks, friends, and smut lovers, and welcome to Your Life is Awesome. I'm super excited about this episode today. I mean, I'm excited about every episode, to be honest, but this is our first Boston episode recorded last month, March 2025, at Tiki Rok in Boston. It is also only the second episode so far with a different host, a host other than me. I know, I get around a lot, but this time, the host you're going to be hearing is Viktor Viktrola. I want to tell you a little bit about Viktor and the Boston show, just really briefly. Viktor has been running the SmutSlam there for 2 years. Before that, it was run by Lucas Brooks. It was founded by Lucas in, I believe, 2016, after he and I had met at a sex positive conference, where I also met Diva Darling, who ended up founding the Baltimore and DC slams. Anyway, it was a big major event, apparently. But Lucas said he wanted to pick up the SmutSlam franchise in Boston and built an amazing community over there starting in 2016. 2 years ago, almost exactly to the day, we learned that he passed away suddenly at home. He passed away on the day of the slam. And Viktor, who was assisting Lucas at the time, nobody knew what had happened, and they just kind of went on with the slam, not sure what was going on, and then found out afterwards. So Viktor picked up the reins when he had to, under some very challenging circumstances, but ended up pulling it forward, working with the community there, building up an amazing slam, and bringing a lot of ideas of his own. So yeah, that's how Viktor stepped into the role, and clearly, clearly he's taken it and, like I said, making it his own. The Tiki Rok location is the second location in the Boston metropolitan area. So both the cafe at the Armory and the Tiki Rok venue, at least for now, are going to be going on. So that's 2 a month in Boston. Get out there, Bostonians. You have a chance to get this filth twice a month in person. Now, the theme of the show was first, which is always suitable for the first time in a new location. Good choice, Viktor. In between, you're going to hear those fuck buckets read and responded to by Viktor. Those are fantastic. Anonymous questions and confessions from the audience. Yeah, it's amazing fun for the host. So take a listen for that. You might notice a difference in sound quality between this and previous episodes. I want to say, stick with us, cuties. It always takes us a little bit to find the best way to record in a new venue. We do want a range of different shows and cities, and we also are trying to balance that with a good listening experience. So just hang in there. We are working this out with the hosts and venues that we have around the world. So thanks to all the tellers on this episode for giving us extra permission to share their stories on the show. You all listening in, just strap in, and we will see you on the other side.
When I was a teenager, I used to pitch a tent in my backyard and camp throughout the summer in my backyard. Now, my tent was one of those old school looking things. It was like an old pup tent. It had canvas, very heavy tan canvas, and aluminum poles that came up and went over, and the tent hung out from this way and that. So I'd spend the whole summer sleeping in that. At night, it was pretty cool, and it felt nice. During the daytime, it was a fucking hellhole, because that canvas would it would just heat up, and you just couldn't be in it. But by the time it was night, it was usually nice. During many of my summers, my best friend Lisa would come and stay the night with me in the tent. And one summer, she had just the most giant crush on this guy named Glenn Sneddon who looked like Eddie Vedder. And now the reason why I say Glenn Sneddon who looked like Eddie Vedder is because I just like the way that those two things sound together. So if you don't know who Eddie Vedder was, he is the lead singer of the band Pearl Jam. So I'm old. If you're young, you don't know, I'm sorry. He had long, curly brown hair and blue eyes. Or has, I should say. And I imagine Glenn still has long, curly brown hair and blue eyes. Maybe he cut it. I don't fucking know. But, so she was head over heels for him because he looked like Eddie Vedder. And she came up with the idea, let's have Glenn over and I'm going to make out with him in the tent. Okay. So I was very young at this point. All I'd really done is like make out with guys and like maybe get a little handsy. So I was like, all right, well, sure. Why don't you have Glenn over? I would also use various things in my yard to make out with boys, like junked cars, sometimes the tent at night, just like laying out on the grass and blankets because, that's all romantic. So we had Glenn over. And she and Glenn disappear into the tent. And mind you, it is very, very hot out. She comes out about 20 minutes later and she's like, oh my God, that was so awesome. Do you want to try? Yes, I do. And really, with like almost no preamble, she didn't even go back in the tent. I go in the tent. I don't make out with him. All I just say is like, hi, Glenn. And then I like laid down next to him and got to work my hands in my mouth. He had just had relations with my friend Lisa's mouth. I don't know why I put it that way, but that's how I said it. So they had just got done. He was still soft and damp. Very damp. And we don't know what this damp is because it was really fucking hot in that tent. I was sweating already outside like I am now and all of this. I'm like, there's fucking sweat rolling down my butt crack right now. You didn't need to know that. So I'm there and, he's young, so he does get hard, again. But I am very, very conscious about how fucking hot it is in there, and I feel sweat dripping off of me and onto his body, and it's all very hot and wet, but not in a good way. Eventually, I do manage to get him off into my mouth, and I just wanted to get out of there so bad that I ran out, stuck my head out the flap, and spit. Which is really gross, but that's what happened. And then I just left. And Lisa was like, well, how was it? And I was like, I don't really know. So that might have been my first slow job, but it was definitely sloppy seconds. Welcome to SmutSlam. Picture this, having sex all night with a hot girl. Her disabled dog is sharing the bed with us. The dog's back legs are paralyzed, so she has no control of her bowels. We wake up the next morning after fucking all night, and there is poop everywhere in the bed. The girl I'm seeing stands up in shame, and she starts bleeding all over the floor. There is now a mix of blood, sweat, poop, and cum in this bed. It is a Monday morning. Rise and shine.
So this story takes place about 3 years ago. It was shortly after my wife and I decided to open up our relationship. We had described ourselves as monogamish for years and hit a point where we were just like, it was a fuck it moment, basically. And so we were both figuring that out together and in our own ways. But it was also the first time I went on a date with a trans woman. And also the first time I went on a date with a couple, because these were two women married couple, both computer programmers. The person I was dating primarily was named Kristen, we'll say. And Mrs. Kristen they were both happily married, but Mrs. Kristen did not like to sleep with people, let alone Kristen. And so they had worked out something that worked well for them. They got along really well. I found it to be a really charming experience, kind of ping-ponging back and forth between questions. It was very wholesome. We did dinner, and then they took me out for ice cream, and we kind of strolled along a lake. And I really enjoyed their company. Mrs. Kristen in particular was a really good conversationalist. Kristen was a little quieter. But then at a certain point in the evening, they split off from me and were kind of talking amongst themselves and came back, told me they decided they'd be comfortable if I wanted to go back to the house with Kristen. And then we would all meet up afterwards while Mrs. Kristen was playing Stardew Valley and check in and say goodnight. And so I was like, yeah, sure, basically was the vibe at the time. And so I drove Kristen home, and we kissed in my car, and she was really cool about checking with consent what I liked, what I didn't like, anything that I should know. She was very thoughtful. And then she asked me if I wanted to go upstairs. And we went to their guest room and were kissing for no more than 5 minutes. And Kristen asked, so what do you want to do? And I was like, well, wait, what do you mean? I'm doing it. I don't understand. And she was like, well, I mean, you could go down on me. I could go down on you. You could top me. I could top you. It was just like soon, I guess, is the way about the topping thing in particular. I don't really have a definitive answer there, at least when it comes to the butt stuff, because anytime I've personally been asked, it's that kind of thing where someone just basically like sticks it up in the air and presents. And so I don't have too many variables. I don't have a good control group to know for sure. But anyway, so yeah, like that's to say I tried and failed at that pretty definitively with like about a 30-second time frame. And so then there was some like unenthusiastic fooling around in there. I think no one wanted to hurt anyone's feelings kind of thing. But there was one moment where I really did feel a charge. And it was when Kristen was behind me, and she put her arm around me and held me tight. And she dropped her voice about an octave and a half and called me a good girl. Now, I don't think I mentioned before, at this point, I was just starting to use they, them pronouns and tell people I was non-binary, but I wasn't really thinking of myself in like trans terms yet. So I was really approaching the state like, oh, this woman's going to, you know, maybe I can learn from this. Maybe we can both learn from this was kind of the thought. And I did, but everything ended pretty quickly after that. And I went down confused. And Mrs. Kristen was deep playing Stardew Valley and looked to be in a great mood. And we gave hugs and said goodnight. And I just drove home really confused about like, you know, not to oversimplify, but like I thought I was the guy on the date. And then it raised questions and turned out to be a very constructive date, actually. So that wasn't the first time that I was a good girl, but it was the first time I got credit for it. Thank you.
I was 18 and so in love that I'd try anything to impress my boyfriend, my first love. I read something on Reddit that I found easy. The Redditor said to give a blowjob with your butt facing their face, it's deeper. Fast forward to that moment. I told my boyfriend to relax and enjoy the ride. My ass was in his face, and I was killing it. 2 minutes later, I threw up all over his dick. He said, wow, it's so wet, it feels great. I then had to get up and tell him I just blew chunks on his penis and bed. His parents were home.
So a few years ago, I met this guy at a party we'll call him Pigeon Guy for very funny reasons. And I meet him, and he's cool, he's nice. I learned that like I know his roommates. He was at this Halloween party dressed as Magic Earring Ken, which is, I think, a good introduction to him if you know what Magic Earring Ken is. So, Vegetarian Ken is the Ken that was designed by tail designers during the gay clubs on Amsterdam. But it's everybody, look it up. So meet this guy at a party. Know his roommates. He seems cool. I end up learning that we also go to a lot of the same events, to a lot of the same kinky events. So just gradually get to know him better, hang out with him a bunch. He invited me to a rope skill share. That's very fun. Eventually that rope skill share falls apart, and another one forms. Also partially led by Fidgeting Guy. So there's a big rope convention that happens in Connecticut every year called Taboo Together. And I know two of the hosts of the rope skill show are going together. So I message them and be like, hey, do you want a carpool? And like, oh yeah, can you bring Pigeon Guy too? He's rooming with us. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, he's cool. So while going to a bunch of kink nights of Pigeon Guy and running into him, I learned that he can really, really take a hit. Like, unbelievably take a hard hit. So I am at this kink convention and I start buying new toys, and I've never really done like an NTAC scene with someone where I just sort of meet someone, go through like first meeting introductions, do all that. And I looked at Pigeon Guy and just like, hey, you want to get hit tonight? He's like, yes, please do it. So we arranged to meet at the dungeon very early on in the evening, sort of get it out of the way so we can go do other things if we want. And I have this lovely experience of sort of walking through a scene from first principles, sort of acting like we've never met before, but with someone who I like know very well, know that I'm able to like hit kind of hard. I walk through my toys with him. He's like, oh, that one looks nice. That one looks nice. This one I've never really used before, but I'm interested to see how that goes. These ones are technically illegal in this dungeon, and I'm not into them anyway, so don't use those. And he also brings out a flogger that has lovely rabbit fur in it that he just won at the raffle there. It's like, please use this on me. I want to know what it feels like. And the reason why I called him Pigeon Guy is because he coos like a pigeon. That's the best way to describe it. And while talking with a friend, we were trying to figure out why he does this. And it's his happy sound. And I heard that cooing so goddamn much during that scene. It wasn't constant. He has other ways he expresses happiness. But it was delightful. He was an absolute pleasure to have on the cross. And, also, nice guy. Gave me all the notes, like, this is what we should have done in negotiations. This, like, you should have asked about aftercare first. I know you know me, so you know what my aftercare is, but, like, next time, do that first. Don't involve other people if, like, it hasn't been negotiated. It wasn't, like, anything bad, but it was just like, oh, yeah, shit, that was a bad idea on my part. So that was my first time doing an impact scene with someone that I didn't already have some sort of a dynamic with. And it was also his first time getting hit with more thuddy toys, which led him to the conclusion, it's like, oh, you develop a lot more bruises when you get hit with thuddy toys than when you get hit with stingy toys. And that was a lovely combination of first times for us.
I've been with this guy for 5 to 6 months. And for 3 of those months, I got my period on him while we were having sex. The only times it didn't happen was when I was traveling out of state and I fully bled on his dick. He seemed more okay with it than I was. We're still together, and he's an Aquarius. Yo, period is like that happening is embarrassing, but period sex, very honestly, is fucking awesome if you can get used to it. Because like, fuck those cramps right out of you, man. Gone. And actually, if you're a typo negative fan. Also, like, that's legit. Like, if you're into CNC, which is consensual non-consent, or if you're into, like, knife clay, or any of those, like, kind of edgy taboo plays, period blood is, like, the fucking perfect thing, right? You can use it like lipstick, just makes it a little more.
Y'all know the game Spin the Bottle? Okay, so for people who don't know or didn't say yes, Spin the Bottle is a thing that I thought was fictitious that like American culture taught you was how awkward teens like broke the ice to make out with each other. So I'm going to tell you this time, the first time I played Spin the Bottle. So if you'll go with me on this, imagine in your imaginations to a time long ago in December of 2014, the young, strapping, not as much gray-haired version of me that was, 3 months ago. My beautiful, wonderful girlfriend was in France abroad. We had some boundaries about openness, so I could, we could make out with people, some things like that. And I got invited to a sexy party in that awkward void between Christmas and New Year's. Explicitly not a sex party, just a sexy party. So I went as a sexy lumberjack, flannel shirts, suspenders, a little bit of eye makeup. Most people were in like leather and fishnets. I kind of missed the cue that lots more skin should be showing, so my B, making up for it now. And as the party goes on, like it's really hard not to like let your eyes drift. And I think everyone at the party is pretty cool with that because they're wearing lingerie and whatnot. But eventually one of a friend of mine is rallying people around a table and says, it's time for Spin the Bottle. And everyone's like, okay, sure. But being the kink-friendly, consent-driven group that we are, our friend says, okay, so here's the rule. When you land on someone, they don't just have to make out with you. Fuck that. You have to give them 3 choices. So you can come up with any 3 things you want. One of them has to be non-physical. So eventually it lands on me. I don't remember what the person offered me. I don't remember what I did. But then I spun it and I landed on a woman. I'm going to use the cryptography names for anonymity's sake. So Alice, Bob, and Eve if we end up with a 3rd character. Shout out to my tech bro nerds here. So the first person, Alice, I land on her and I'm like, hey, do you want to make out? Classic, can't go wrong. Do you want a back massage? Because who doesn't want a back massage? Or do you want to share a fantasy of yours? And I'll just listen, right? Because that can be fun too. And she's like, yeah, I want a back massage. I'm like, fucking it. So I'm like, great. And then so she sits in front of me, but everyone else is watching us being like, like we need to keep playing, right? And it's her turn. And I'm like, oh yeah. Fuck. Okay, you go. And then we'll like do the back massage after you're done with whatever your thing is. So she's like, got you. So she spins and lands on the woman sitting right next to us. And she comes up with some options and definitely just hijacks the back massage idea. And the woman's like, yeah, I also want a back massage. So she does the same thing. She's like, great, well, I'll start getting one. And then when you're done, you come here and we'll make like a back massage train. And this is like peak high school bullshit, right? At 35 with like a bunch of lingerie clad people. Way better than high school. So the funny part is we're like the other person goes, we're in this little back massage train on one side of the table. But when you spin a bottle, if there are 4 sides of a table, it's always like some portion of the time it's going to land on the one that is the 3 of us doing the back massage train. And since there are 3 choices, we've decided that we are now one individual. So if someone spins, so every option became like, I would say one thing, and then, the first person would say one thing, and the third person would say one thing. And at one point, we realized that the bottle we were using was a can of whipped cream. So the 3 of us collectively offered to lick whipped cream off of someone on the table, and that is the best way to play Spin the Bottle. I've only played it once, but I'm sure.
One time I hooked up on my roommate's couch and squirted for the first time. It got all over the couch, and my date and I stopped mid-hookup to frantically spray it all off with Febreze, butt-ass naked at 2 a.m. The next day, the roommate said the couch smelled good. Sorry. Oh my God.
God, you guys.
I stepped in cat vomit retrieving a condom on Valentine's Day. My wife then stepped in the same vomit while bringing the paper towels. That's gross, but your life is awesome. Was this while you guys were having relations? Because that's evil. Oh, yep. Retrieving a condom. Yep, because my brain was just stuck on the cat vomit, because that is like the worst fucking feeling in the world when you're like,
Hello, everyone. I love to be naked. Clothes are a burden placed on us by society. I took some friends skinny dipping in the ocean, and we saw, what do you call it, when the algae lights up and there was no moon, so we could see the green in the waves crashing, the bioluminescence. And my girlfriend said to me, this is the closest I've felt to God. And I said, you have bumped me before. What are you talking about? You've been inside God. I thought about a lot of firsts I could tell from my first story at SmutSlam, but I decided the first time that I went streaking would be the story that I tell you. I was at a hippy-dippy university that I could not afford. So first semester, last semester, and I was aware of it by this point. I invited all my friends over to my room to pregame and just get ready to take all our clothes off. There was a big lap happening in the middle of campus. And so you would get down to a robe or something, and then everyone would scurry out of the dorms and act like the people at the door didn't know what we were up to and go and run in the cold of New England in the late of night. You know it? Exactly. I don't know, I'm trying to be vague, but you guys probably know it. So I invited all my friends over, and I go, okay, you guys, I have to pee. Kind of like I really have to pee on this stage right now. But I stepped out into the hall, into the bathroom. These girls who were next door were like, we're doing glitter handprints in my room. Do you want to come? And so I abandoned my friends immediately without saying anything to them to have a bunch of beautiful women put their hands on my body covered in Vaseline and then sprinkle me with glitter. I have no regrets, and my friends were very understanding when I saw them later on the quad. Eventually we left the dorms. Eventually we made it. We were out in the cold, and people are on bikes, on roller skates, on skateboards, and I'm there doing laps. I haven't run since my tits passed C cups, but they're flapping left and right. There's some people with their phones out. I'm like, love it. Save that for later, bitch. I'm running. I see my roommates who cleared out of the room so I could host my friends, who I then left in my roommate's room alone and unsupervised, which you're not supposed to do. But I'm covered in glitter handprints, and both of them have their boyfriends from out of town. I'm like, hi, great to see you. I can't believe you're here. Great to see you. Keep running. Go. I'm like, okay. Love the party. I'm doing laps. I lose my vintage LL Bean jacket that I got at a Goodwill for like $2. Someone knew its value and I did not. That was gone. She returned my ID card 3 days later in the library. She looked me in the eye and said, "You're welcome." It was my first time naked in public, but far from the last. Thank you.
the first time I had sex, oddly enough, was not the time I broke my hymen, and that was the second time. I bled all over the back seat of an Irish man's car, and the next day, it was COVID lockdown. Sometimes I feel like it was my karma. Wow, that's a journey. A lot of people don't know that you don't necessarily break your hymen the first time you have penis and vagina sex. I didn't know this. I did break my hymen the first time that I had penis and vagina sex. What I didn't know is that it could break again. Yes, I was having sex with my now husband, and something felt wrong, and then I was bleeding everywhere. I flipped the fuck out, everybody. And I went to the doctor, and she's like, "You're fine." Great, cool. That was a little traumatic. Bye.
I thought about if I should give you guys me for the first time on which side of the fence. I think I'll give you the first time because it almost doesn't seem like it makes any sense. Looking back on it retrospectively, I think that we all have that first time that's just weird. But this is like atomically weird. So I grew up in Colorado. The Bronx ad gives it away. And we were a lot like you guys as Patriots fans, if anybody here is. During the 90s, like, there was no winning. We were awful. We go to Super Bowls and get destroyed. And I wasn't really a fan. I just was like, God, this is awful. Please make it stop. And my first girlfriend at the time was my best friend's cousin. Sounds weird. Just saying it out loud sounds weird. And she was beautiful, and I was so into her. And my dad had divorced and had come out to Massachusetts to be with his soon-to-be wife and left me home alone. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to get laid. This is going to be the first time. It's going to be awesome. And I went into romantic Curtis mode, laying out flowers and setting the moon with candles. And I'm like, this is going to be great. So she comes up and we're hooking up. And then we go into sex. And midway through the short duration of what was anticipated sex, so probably like 30 seconds worth of sex, she looks over at me. She's like, this is probably more important to you than it was to me. I was like, oh, that feeling of torture is bad enough. But we went upstairs and the Broncos won the Super Bowl and fireworks started blowing. Yeah. I don't know how the fuck I played it that way, but I just remember torture and then what the fuck is going on? Like, why would it happen to me? But that was my first time having sex.
I'm afraid to peg the guy I've been seeing because it will ruin him for others. Then, I'm convinced straight men have a sixth sense when they know a woman is interested in them, because I swear to God, whenever I get excited about a situationship, they ghost me. This has happened 4 times this past year. SmutSlam, please help me. I'm really sorry you're getting ghosted. I'm gonna put it out there that it's not you, it's them. Because they're an asshole for ghosting you. And it's not you. They didn't deserve you anyway. So, my friend, at some point you'll find a decent fucking person who doesn't ghost, who isn't scared of, being honest.
This is the story of the first time that I had group sex and had the depression fucked out of me. Brief content warning for frank but not graphic discussion of my history of suicidal ideation. I lost my 20s to that. Much of my decision-making and life choices were created in the intent of passing time with as minimal suffering as possible until opportunities might arise. This was paired with me just inside like a caged animal clawing at the walls of her enclosure because I wanted to do so many things. So many kinky and flirty and wonderful things, but I could not get out of my compartmentalized brain and my self-hatred. So, it's New Year's Eve, 2023. I'm at one of those Somerville-themed co-op parties, you know. I need a person who's almost immediately begins regaling a Drax story for SmutSlam, which is how I found out about this. Later, I am talking to this person with another friend and listening raptly as they describe a recent threesome that they've had. And I say something along the lines of, oh, God, I wish that were me. And they straightforwardly reply along the lines of, would you like it to be? Tonight, maybe? Friends, I fucking choked. Like the dog that caught the proverbial car, I was frozen in indecision and anxiety. I left that night with profuse apologies and regret. It's a couple of months later, another Somerville co-op themed party. And those two people
are in attendance again, and I tell myself very firmly that if they are still amenable to it, I will have a new and thrilling sexual experience tonight, so help me God. And with the last-minute addition of my husband to make it a foursome, I fucking did, and it went so well, and it was beautiful, and it was the right combination of exploratory and playful and languid, no rush or anything. I'm a very tactile person. A lot of my recollection of sexual experience comes through touch. I'm going down on my husband. I feel a hand caressing my ass, tearing my thong down and fingering me. I remember licking my lover's cunt as multiple hands just grasp and fondle me all over, and it feels so great to be in my body at that moment. I'm getting railed by multiple dicks. I'm really relishing the different levels of fullness I'm experiencing. I'm lounging with a lover playing with their hair, watching the other two fuck. Just content as clams. So I think the week after, I basically just floated through. There was an incredible lightness of being that I never thought I could experience, frankly. No intrusive thoughts, no upcoming precipice. And that led to a very hectic 2024, but in a good way. I cleaned up, I did a lot of house cleaning mentally, dust this off, throw this away. You need a professional for that. I did a lot of catch up on hobbies and making inroads into the kinky community, and my husband and I finally figured out our polyamory situation, which was non-monogamish, as someone else mentioned earlier. I had a really bad relapse, unfortunately, at the end of 2024. This happens. Recovery is peaks and valleys. But, even in the worst of it, I didn't feel like ending it all. That didn't come back. And I felt better after a bit. I'm told this is how emotions are supposed to work, so that's good. And it was all because of one little foursome a year ago that made me believe finally that beautiful and pleasurable things are within my reach, and that I am desirable, and I can be loved and be sexually fulfilled with my best erotic life. And there are going to be warm and open-hearted people who can help me along the way. Also, to the host of that foursome, I'm sorry we left all that glitter on your bed. Thank you.
I am a tummy ache survivor. Yo, so I tell people they can enter the fuck bucket with whatever they want, and this is a good example. I am a tummy ache survivor. Good job. Good job. Hopefully you win that prize. Yay! Everybody feel robbed if they're the one who won. All right. I got topped last night for the first time. 10 out of 10 will bottom again. I recently got to experience a new sex position I had fantasized about. My friend fucked me from behind with a strap on while my partner fucked my mouth, and the two of them made out above me. I call it the Frenching Eiffel Tower. The Frenching Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that title is redundant. The Frenching Eiffel Tower. It's just, isn't that what they always do at the top of the Eiffel Tower? Aren't people always making out in that position? I don't know. But it's extra French, extra Frenchy French. Gotta love that. That makes it even more sexual, right? Those are the rules. Okay. So, yeah, thank you so much for listening to this with us today, for joining us for this extra special episode coming to you from Boston, and the audience and the host there, Viktor Viktrola. Thanks to Tiki Rok for taking a chance on this weird little show. I know that Viktor has told me he's super excited about the space, so going to be good times there. If you love this show and you want more regular episodes, you should give us a boost and jump on our Patreon. There is an archive of extended episodes to enjoy with stories and fun buckets that never made it into the regular episodes. Like, we can't put everything in, okay, to the regular episodes. But for our patrons over on Patreon, we give you a bunch of stuff. Plus, you get to listen to the regular episodes early, all right? You get first crack at it, okay? And at a very little monthly cost, we're talking €2 or €3 a month, you can get all these benefits. And believe me, we're thinking about other things to share with you. So join us over there on Patreon. That's patreon.com/yourlifeisawesome. That's all one word. And you can join our little smutty friend club. Yes, you want to be there. Now, for those who are lucky enough to be in locations where we do live shows, I want to let you know what's going on. Now, of course, you can always go to our website, smutslam.com, and look up the directory or look up the events. I believe it's called on our we're working on a website renovation, okay? Just chill, all right? Anyway, you go to the events, you're going to get there, and you're going to see, holy shit, a long list of events. And at this time, it is longer than ever. Coming up, April 8th, I am hosting a show in Copenhagen. On April 11th, we have Heidelberg. April 12th is Mannheim. April 16th is Erfurt. Those are all Germany shows, and those are all hosted by me. I am going to be pushing myself to do more German language action at those shows, so you might get lucky and hear me stumble over some Germanic shit. It's going to be funny. Okay, anyway, on April 18th, we have Baltimore, hosted by Diva Darling. On the 21st, I'll be back in Berlin hosting the Slam here at Crack Belmer. Viktor Viktrola is back at Tiki Rok on April 22nd. And then I've got a whole lot I'm starting out my Baltic Crescent. I call it my Baltic Crescent. It's hitting all the Baltic countries in a row. Boom, boom, boom. So on the 24th of April, it's Vilnius. April 27th, Riga. April 28th, Tartu. April 30th, Tallinn. And then May 5th is Helsinki. All right. I know that's a problem. My work-life balance is really messed up. But if you go to SmutSlam, go to that event page. All of the ticket links that we can give you are right there. Get those tickets. Tell your friends in those cities that they can go check it out. And obviously, if they're not in any of those cities, you need to share this podcast with them. This is the best way to get that flavor. And if you're at all curious about how we make this happen, because obviously it feels like a really risky thing to be sharing sex stories with strangers in rooms? What? Okay, we take steps. If you're curious how we do this for our storytellers and our audience, please check out our code of conduct. You can read all about that at smutslam.com/code of conduct, right? Lots of little linkies there on the website. Go check them out. I know you got some time on your hands. All right. And if you heard this podcast and then you're coming out to see me at a live show or any of your hosts, tell them, yeah, I heard your podcast and I want the live stuff in my face. It's very gratifying. I like that. All right. Thanks again for joining us. And in the meantime, just remember, your life is awesome.
This has been Your Life is Awesome, a story podcast from SmutSlam with Cameryn Moore. Produced by me, Marc Seistedt. Music by Sticky Biscuits. A huge thank you to all storytellers featured. All stories are being shared with permission. If you want to help us make more of these, plus get access to longer episodes and other bonus material, please join our Patreon at patreon.com/yourlifeisawesome. If that's not in the cards right now, you can also help by rating and reviewing this show. Look for that option in your podcast app. We might read out some reviews on a future episode. Got a question for Cameryn? Write or send a voice recording to smutslampodcast@gmail.com. This too might be featured on the podcast. And if you want to find out more about SmutSlam and the code of conduct we use in the shows, go to smutslam.com. All links mentioned can be found in the podcast info. Thanks for listening.